Thank you very much for staying on. And before we bring you the details, let's quickly go to the banquet hall in Accra, where the president is launching the national sanitation campaign.
In the other regions, to ensure that there are adequate, modern, engineered, and environmentally acceptable sites for the processing of waste nationwide. I wish to stress that it is the policy of government to acquire and own these sites in partnership with the private sector. Management service contracts of these sites will be awarded through a competitive tendering process. This policy will ensure fair play and avoid monopoly. Government is also providing assistance to environmental service providers who are doing their best to clean up our cities and towns. These measures include assisting them with access to credit facilities and defining a tax regime that will enable them to procure new and effective tools for their work. To break away from the specter of frequently broken down trucks and service providers having to purchase old or home-used trucks, the Minister for Finance will be taking a critical look at this matter and helping create a conducive environment to resource the operators adequately. Modern, new state-of-the-art trucks and equipment are of the utmost necessity to deliver on this objective, and I intend to make it happen. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we must all recognize that indiscipline has been a major cause of the unsanitary situation in most parts of the country. It is not in our nature as Ghanaians to be dirty. We keep our immediate surroundings and our homes very clean. However, for one reason or the other, when we step out of these immediate surroundings, we seem to ignore all of these positive attitudes. Successive Ghanaian governments have tried to reverse this trend and inculcate a habit of greater discipline in the care of our surroundings. It has not succeeded. My government intends to make a fresh start. As waste is generated every day, we have an obligation to keep our environment clean every day. We have to do so daily and not on a monthly basis. Every day is Sanitation Day. I recognize, however, that the government cannot do it alone. This is why I wish to call on all of us, especially our chiefs and queen mothers, religious and opinion leaders, civil society organizations, private sector operators, to rise up to the challenge and help make a difference this time round. As we lead by example, every government department and agency, including the seat of government, is assigning 2 officers to be designated sanitation marshal and deputy marshal to oversee compliance of their outfits and their staff.
All right, so those are excerpts of the speech by the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, at the National Sanitation Launch, the banquet hall here in Accra. Still live on the marketplace. Now, moving on, be modest with your economic targets. That's the advice coming from Joe Abbey. He's calling for a review of the country's expenditure patterns instead of coming up with many more promises.
The main problem is that we can't find more resources to spend. So at the back of our minds must be trying to get the most mileage of whatever we've got. That is, you can't run around that. I mean, if we were to be looking at areas of saving, I feel that part of the thing, if you're going to be reviewing things, would have been to say, look, Every zongo is in a geographical area. Every zongo is in a district. So shouldn't it also be part of this whole thing about how to get out of the rut that may be the lot of the zongo dwellers? By asking, so you, this district assembly in which this zongo is located, what have been your plans? What plans have you had? What have you been doing? Where are the weaknesses? So why is it that it is the only road that will have special funds added to the district in which the zongo is located? And then, so what is new? What makes us believe that this time around we will not recreate the zongos? So I'm saying that as part of the review, whether of taxes or not, we should also be reviewing our expenditures. And we should also insist that we want value for money. Whatever we've got, you can't have a situation in which so much leakages, we find technical nice names, ghost workers, leakages. What do they mean? They mean that somebody has done away with the resources of the land. And sometimes having the need to retrieve itself may also be just sidetracking everybody. So my thing is that we need to be looking at compliance. We need to collect what is due, okay? It is not going to be that easy, but we need to be able to do it. We need to also look at what do we do with the expenditures. Auditor General's reports keep pointing out all is not well in the way we use our resources, whether it's in district assemblies, we have got delayed projects, we've got abandoned projects, we've got malfeasances every year. These things get repeated. You've set up a gift miss and then you have expenditures outside of the gift miss. What does it mean? And yet we go through all the rigmarole, we get these things done, we get approval, only next year. Why is it that it took Occupy Ghana a lot of hard work to be able to get some movement on what happens with the Auditor General's report?
Now, Dr. Joe Abbey is also cautioning government to be modest with the macroeconomic targets to be set for next year's budget. Now, he is telling the finance minister as he prepares to present the 2018 budget to Parliament next Wednesday. The country over the years has always struggled to meet revenue, growth and expenditure targets set out in the budget, resulting in some of these estimates being reviewed 6 months after presentation. Dr. Joe Abbey has maintained that this development does not help in efforts in consolidating investor confidence in the economy.
There are these types of things where the law, the technicalities may provide answers. But you listen to some of these things and you ask yourself, who really understands what these political leaders are talking about? The most recent ones about the energy bomb. You hear all manner of technical, super technical explanations about why this happened. In April, we had a similar debate about whether there was conflict of interest and so on. So they sit down and they are talking. And a lot of us don't understand what exactly is it that they are talking about. So we need to carry the people. We in civil society, we, the true owners of the business, these are appointed managers. We, the true owners, must hold ourselves to account. We must set realistic targets, because if the embarrassment and the costs come, the impact on our lives, it requires sitting down, looking at what is realistic, be able to hold ourselves to that, so that it is not some people coming with their interests who tell us, if you don't give me this, I won't do that. That any Ghanaian will find reason to be like rejoicing about the fact that we tried to float a bond and it flopped. This is something we as Ghanaians must be saying, what are the implications? What can we do? What did we do wrong? It's not somebody, it's we. So we should reach a point where if genuinely there were things that were technically not correct about an action, we shouldn't go and do it and decide who is to blame. It is our responsibility to deepen our understanding of the opportunities and also the risks that are in our way.
Now, President Akufo-Addo is promising significant reduction in youth unemployment in the country from next year. The president's optimism is based on the full implementation of some key policies like industrialization, agriculture and human capital, which will be the main focus of the 2018 budget. Answering questions at the Bloomberg Africa Business Conference, the president said these policies are going to be implemented in a way that would help with the transformation of the economy.
Here in Ghana is trying to focus the attention of our young people on two key areas of our national life, because we believe that improvements in the development of these two key areas is in fact the key to a future prosperous Ghana. One, the development of our agriculture, and secondly, of course, of our industrial development. And the two main programs that we have launched, one is the public sector program. We have something we call the Youth Employment Agency, which is responsible for harnessing youth in several areas of publicly supported activities. I mean, the agency this year is poised to complete the year by employing some 60,000 people. Then you have the private sector initiative that is also supported by the public sector. We have a national entrepreneurship and innovation plan, and we've been able to establish with a relatively modest seed figure of some 10 million United States dollars, whose job it is to identify startup businesses by young people, businesses that are going in the early stages, and support them. Support them not just with money, but with assessing technical assistance, generally improving the quality in which they can do their businesses.
All right, so according to the African Center for Economic Transformation, about 48% of the youth in the country are unemployed. The center maintains that the development poses a major security risk for the country. Now, still on this particular conference, George Rafi, who was there, has joined me right here in the studio. Now, George, what's so special about unemployment at this conference, and how does it tie into the budget?
When you look at your population dynamics, you look at which age bracket the population is very large or is big. And therefore, in terms of any policy that you want to put across, it should target the band or the age group that commands the largest numbers in your population. And that's why the president is very optimistic or is very concerned about the fact that any policies that should be implemented should look at those critical sectors of our population size that is expected to contribute much to the economy. And it's believed that, as you said, 48% of these youth group, they don't have any job to do. Therefore, whatever policies that you need to put in place to ensure that it targets this critical age group of the economy, these are those who can contribute much to the expansion of the economy. And that is why he believes that it's critical to focus on this area. You know already that the 2018 budget will focus, that's what we are hearing from those who are working on it, industrialization, agriculture, and human capital. And if you're talking about industrialization, who are those man-force that can drive that industrialization, even though you need the elders who would give the vision, the young guys who would do that. Agriculture as well. He's speaking about the fact that how they can use agriculture to actually attract the young folks in the country to also go into this. So it's all about the critical nature of the youth in the economy. And if you want to expand, let's talk about industrialization. The youth may or have to play a critical role in this whole industrialization drive.
Now, George, it's very interesting, but I believe you would also agree with me that the issue of unemployment has become more or less a lip service on the mouth of many or successive governments. And now, what specifics is the president hinting?
So he's talking about his government's policy that is trying to industrialize the economy from next year. There's talk about one district, one factory. There's talk about planting for food and jobs. And it's like a cycle if you want to look at it, because if the industries are going to set up, they need to feed on raw materials. So if they're able to get access to these raw materials at a very competitive rate or competitive price, then that will feed the industry. Then you can export these produce of these industries to meet the needs of, let's just say, first the country first, and export the rest. When you do that, you earn more foreign exchange. It boosts your reserves. You can use those monies to, again, develop the economy. So it's a cycle, and the president believes that where's the manpower going to come from to drive this planting for food and jobs? The manpower that's going to drive the agenda to industrialize the economy. And it looks like it is the youth that have to be brought on board, that we bring on board, or you have to bring them on board to actually help move this agenda of government. And that is why he believes that any policy that the budget will come out with next year should target the youth in terms of expanding the economy. Because if the economy doesn't expand, if you don't have a lot of economic activities taking place in the economy, how do you absorb the youth?
Now, unemployment alone, you would also agree with me, does not provide, I mean, the youth alone does not provide employment, or that cannot be employed without training or without capacity building. Now, how is it going to be tied in, the issue of education or capacity building? He
mentioned that, well, for those who are not well educated, or there are some government agencies that are going to help them develop their skills. So it wouldn't just be the classroom education. If you don't have it and you still have the skills, how can you be trained to still contribute to the economy? So it's not just about those who had the classroom education, but those who missed out on that opportunity. As long as the skills are there, they can polish the skills and then draft you in to this whole policy to help grow the economy.
Do you have any percentages on this transformation?
Not the numbers you don't have, but it looks like they are still being worked on, and those fine details would be outlined in the 2018 budget that will be presented to Parliament. That is, the economists will say, all other things being equal. The finance minister will do a presentation on Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
Sure, let's wait for what it is.
And let's see what those policies that will be in terms of transforming the economy and then making it that middle-income country.
Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, Yafi.
And George Yafi has just returned from the Bloomberg Africa Business Conference, where the president is promising significant reduction in youth unemployment. Now, moving on, the third Oil and Gas Summit has opened in Accra under the theme Maximizing Oil and Gas Resources in Africa. Deputy Minister of Energy, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, opened the summit.
Sources. Over the years, African countries have relied on international partners who own capital and technology to enable the exploitation of our resources. However, in many cases, ladies and gentlemen, the partnerships have been less than symbiotic between the state and the partners. The drivers for this situation is often attributed to corruption than the much talked about capacity of institutions. Therefore, the promulgation of laws such as the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the UK Bribery Act, Canada's Extractive Sector Transparency Measures Act, the EU Accounting and Transparency Directives, and many others underscore efforts at exposing corruption and stopping the looting of resources meant for the development of our countries. Unfortunately, there appear to be more efforts at checking abuse of our resources in the states of origin of foreign international companies than those of resource host countries, particularly in Africa. Further, our institutions have been largely captured and often under-resourced, pursuing special interests in most cases and appropriating rent to a few in our society. This has led to devastating consequences for Africa's development. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to reverse this trend if we are to maximize benefits from our petroleum resources. The way to do this, among others, is to ensure that the processes of awarding contracts are transparent and credible and removes doubts on the minds of the ordinary citizens and relevant stakeholders. Madam Chair, in Ghana, our government has strengthened our commitment and determination to making the punishment for corruption punitive and deterrent, and to promote the independence and effectiveness of mechanisms for fighting corruption. In this respect, A bill is currently before Parliament for the establishment of Office of Special Prosecutor to deal with high-level corruption cases across sectors, including oil and gas. We've also subscribed as a country to international processes of addressing extractive-based corruption, such as the EITI and the Open Government Partnership, and the results so far have been quite impressive.
Bringing some more highlights of the third Oil and Gas Summit, which opened in Accra. Now, crossing over to the Ashanti region, woodworkers and sellers in Kumasi are cashing in on the relocation of traders to raise calls. Now, some have pitched camp at the area, erecting platforms and providing some related services to the traders. Nana Yaojima has been interacting with both traders and carpenters and has sent in this report.
Some of the traders are using woodwork to demarcate and secure spaces for themselves. Between 60 and 80 cedis worth of wood planks is needed to raise a platform, depending on where one buys from. For their services, carpenters charge up to 20 cedis, as some tell Joy News. I take 20 cedis at least. The job has been good.
Okay, medium carpenter.
It is our season. I am a carpenter, so when I learned they were coming here, I decided to follow them. They trade on tables, so we came here to help them make new ones. Ajimandua is a truck driver at race course, but he switched jobs to sell wood when the traders started trickling in here.
8 CD, 180, 8 CD.
I started yesterday, and it has been good. The prices range between 8 and 15 cedis, so there are options for everyone. Mary tells me why she needs to raise a platform.
4 wools, that's the wawa, the 4x4. You have to buy 4 of it, and when you want to put the structure to, you have to pay the carpenter for 30 cedis or 20 cedis. When you want it to be done properly too, you have to give the ladies around money for them to bring in sand to fill it before it can stick to the ground very well. So after you've done all that, I don't know what you are come to do now. Now we are not allowed to put on any structure, whether roofing sheet or to cover anything, to cover it with anything.
Nana Yaojima reporting.
Now, the Ghana Grains Council says it is anticipating an increase in maize yields next year. Despite the fall army worm invasion, the Agric Minister declared a state of emergency as over 18,200 maize farms were attacked by the pests. However, speaking to Joy Business, the president of the Ghana Grains Council, Gideon Abuaji, said judging from the harvest so far, members foresee an increase compared with previous times.
The first incidence of the fall armyworm invasion was in 2016. The invasion destroyed an estimated 4,000 hectares of crop fields. Early this year, the pest made a return, attacking over 18,000 hectares of maize farms across the country. Despite concerns about its negative impact on overall food supply in 2017, President of the Ghana Grains Council says the impact is rather negligible.
We do not see any change in terms of output negatively. We are anticipating an increase in output in terms of grains in the country, barring any unforeseen circumstance, because the major season had been good. The minor season is also fairly good, and with the introduction of fertilizer and improved seeds, we believe that it will increase production, and we anticipate that we should be able to go a little above the average annual production of grains in the country. The total performance in the first season will give you a fair idea that things are going to be good. And from the reports that we have received from the field indicates that we've done fairly above what we did previous years as a result of the intervention.
Meanwhile, experts are calling on authorities to prepare for possible invasion in 2018. Sheila Tamaklo for Joy Business.
And that will be a wrap for this afternoon's edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Apwaji. Good afternoon.